Assalamualaikum to Miss Jamhira and all my friends. In this video presentation, our group will be present about traditional model of public administration lead to the endless red tape issues in Malaysia. Before we start with our presentation, let me introduce our group members. First, we have me myself, AMANINA ATIQAH HELMY. Next, NURHANIS NAJWA AMINUDDIN. Third, FATIHAH SAIFULLIZAN. The others are FADZLIN SYAFIQAH FAHIZAN and Muhammad Farid Ikhwan SHAMSI. Before we go further regarding our topic for this presentation, let's start with the introduction.
First, let us look on what is traditional public administration. The traditional model can be defined as an administration that is formally under the influence of the political governance based on such a strictly hierarchical model of bureaucracy occupied by permanent, prompt only by the public interest and simply administering those policies determined by the politicians. In significant aspect, the traditional model of public administration is based on Max Weber's descriptions of the nature of bureaucracy, where he stressed top-to-bottom control through the monochromatic hierarchy, or a governance system whereby a policy is established at the top and implemented out through a network of officers, among each manager and employee reporting to a superior and being held accountable by that individual. Next is new public management. The term NPM was first used to characterize public sector reforms in the United Kingdom and New Zealand at the beginning of the 1990s. Its concentration on output control, the disintegration of traditional bureaucratic structures, and the decentralizations of management authority, the implementation of market and quasi-market procedures, and customer-oriented services are characteristic of NPM principle in general. Moreover, since the NPM movement believed the private sector and private sector management approaches were better than those used by the public sector and public administration, it concentrated on mirroring what were viewed as important characteristics of private sector ways of organizing and managing. Lastly, as for the red tape, it is referring to an excessively complicated administrative practice or procedure that causes delay or inaction. It is also a string of seemingly pointless or burdensome steps that you must take in order to obtain something from a government or institution. Red tape is also believed to be unnecessary or bureaucratic and is defined as excessive regulations or tight adherence to formal norms that obstruct or delays action or decision making. Red tape mainly refers to forms that must be filled out, licenses that must be obtained, decisions that must be approved by several persons or committees, and various minor regulations that slow down or complicate business operations.
Next, we have the concept of TPA and its relevance to new public management. There is a major different concept that had been applied by both TPA and NPM. From the features in the table, we can see NPM are ahead of the field rather than traditional public administration. One of the reasons is because the concept of TPA itself is burdensome. In TPA, government personnel are hired through a merit system devised by the government personnel agency and frequently enacted into law. Meanwhile, NPM stipulates that public servants should have to accept more personal accountability for the action of the agencies in return for enhanced autonomy and flexibility to them. TPA is primarily concerned with its own organization, while NPM is more forward-thinking. In TPA, rules end in themselves, resulting in red tapes and associated problems. However, in NPM, rules are considered a means to an end. Next, from the diagram above, we can see the correlation that may happen between NPM and TPM. Even both of them have a difference in features, but when they become together, it can help for better administration in each management. However, we should agree the NPM approach is no longer new. This is because several authors have proposed new models to address the myopic and fragmented governance system that arose as an unintended consequences of previous NPM reform. In order to ensure the topic of the assignment fulfill the lesson in our study, we are focusing on identifying the problems that happen when TPA is selected as the main system in administration by making a review on how the traditional model of public administration can cause the red tape issue to happen in our country Malaysia. My other teammate will discuss further regarding this matter.
Alright, the government red tape in terms of public administrations can be seen through the issues of stop disabled people from getting monthly welfare allowance. Red tape in the public administrations can be defined as procedure and regulation imposed on public and private sector organizations that results in negative impact. Moreover, to the workers, even though disabled, employees are an organization's most valuable assets because their goals and objectives cannot be achieved without employee input. Red tape plays a negative role for organizations in the public sector by significantly affecting the behavior of individual employees. Moreover, employees with disabilities. Kumar Nadesan's employees with disabilities complained that his allowance was cut because he failed to fill in an annual review form to verify his eligibility. This happened because he was not aware of requirement and the Department of Social Welfare cancelled the allowance without any investigations. This issue starts when the SOP provided by the government, such as the review form that was made a few years ago to ensure that those who receive the allowance were really eligible. It is clear again when it can be seen that the SOP that is done is a form of discrimination and the welfare officer has to visit their beneficiaries to check their situations before cancelling their allowance. But that did not happen and went as expected.
The government red tape in terms of education can be seen through the issue of stateless children being prevented from attending local schools. Thousands of stateless children face discriminations, abuse and unfair treatment today, including in terms of education, all because they lack an important piece of identification, the identity card. According to the National Education Policy, primary education is required for all children aged 6 to 12 years old, including non-citizens. However, there is one issue where a 10-year-old girl was forced to drop out of a government schools after she was unable to produce her passport. The girl, known as Ahmed, was born in Malaysia before her Malaysian father and Indonesian mother formally registered their marriage, so she has no identity card. As a result of this issue, it is clear that government red tape hinders stateless children from attending the local schools and denying their education. The issue of government red tape in business can be seen through the issue that happened in Petaling Jaya, where some employers, particularly those from small and medium-sized enterprise (SMEs), face the latest obstacle, which is appointments up for sale, in their efforts to secure foreign workers for their businesses. Some employers stated that the appointments were difficult to obtain due to the red tape involved in the process of hiring foreign workers. They must lobby because applications are easily rejected because there are so many requirements to fulfill, documents to fill out and upload. Thus, the government should cut red tape and bureaucratic procedures for businesses that are looking to hire foreign workers.
Alright, now we move to the factor that lead to the red tape in Malaysia. Firstly, it is because methods being used are no longer necessary. This happened because the government does not implement e-government, where the ability of the government to develop the implementations of electronic-based government service by utilizing information technology. The old method used causes all method to be slow and there is no public service, and the old method cannot be used because it is not updated and out of date. This is also happened on the basis of many documents and paper used in all matters. This is one of the reasons why many employees in the public sector have problems in the workplace. From the preview red tape in terms public administration, Chow Siu Cheong, Assistant Executive Director of the National Council for the Blind, has said it is time we look at the current system honestly and see if we really helping to support people with disabilities. This can be seen that the system used by the government in the past was really weak because everything require work on the paper and not on the internet. This make many people feel inconvenient and the information that needs to be received does not arise because the government still deliver information using the old method.
Factor that leads to the issue of stateless children being prevented from attending local schools is unreasonable EU policy. Penang Deputy Chief Minister P. Ramasamy criticised Putrajaya for implementing this new policy, which effectively denies stateless children access to education. He stated that previously, stateless children adopted by Malaysian parents were allowed to attend government schools as long as the parents bring a copy of the official adoption court order and adoption documentation from the welfare department. However, the government suddenly implemented a new policy requiring these children to bring their passport when registering for government schools. P. Ramasamy, Penang's Deputy Chief Minister, stated that he wrote to the Education Department in November 2020 but received no response.
The last factor is because policy bias, as we should know rules, regulation and law that are put into effect as policy control not just how things are organized but also how society or the economy behave. Government law and regulation exist to influence behavior and provide direction for people and organizations in a specific manner that is accepted in the society. Additionally, the government must remedy market failures in numerous industries and provide public goods that have beneficial externality on all businesses. Although most policies are created with the best of intention, they frequently have unintended consequences or lose their effectiveness when the situation change. Factor red tape in policy bias also can be addressed by identifying various ways of organization, unit, interface or interaction with other units or and organization. Usually there is a close interaction between procedure and system and rules and organization rules. Organization use procedure to enforce rules and regulation and use rule and regulation to make procedure works better. But many procedure and system are designed purely from a functional or transactional perspective.
The first solutions for the red tape issue are conveyed to a new method of administration, which is the introduction of e-government. The effective use of e-government enhances the effectiveness and efficiency of governmental operations, help improve processes and procedures, raises the standard of public services and enhances the use of information in decision-making. Regarding the issues of red tape in Malaysia, through this new method of administration using the e-government system, it may reduce the number of red tape issues. The administrative process will no longer be complicated and cause a delay. Everything will be much easier to access and use by all people at any time and place. For example, the government can create a special e-government platform, especially for people with disabilities. This is to make it easier for them to deal with various things such as knowing any important information that needs to be done or any forms or survey that need to be filled out by them.
Then, the second solution to solve this red tape issue is government should introduce more accessible citizenship application procedures. Citizenships give individual legal rights and a voice in the governance of their country. Thus, one of the solutions that government can take into action is that the Ministry of Home Affairs could adopt a comprehensive approach to helping stateless persons. If the government is serious about reducing and preventing statelessness, it might introduce more accessible citizenship application procedures. Since stateless persons often lack an appropriate and official form of identifications, the National Registration Department in these circumstances must be reasonable and in conformity with the Federal Constitution. Other than that, citizenships and documentation concerns are prevalent in Malaysia, and addressing them at the policy level might be one answer. Therefore, by collaborating with civil society to enact required reforms, the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees is dedicated to influencing legislative changes that might eliminate statelessness. Next, the third solution is the government should make it easier to employ foreign workers. It is to solve the problem of a labour shortage which might hinder the economic recovery of Malaysia. The Federation of Malaysian Manufacturers stated that Malaysia needs a foreign workers recruitment strategy based on a framework that meets sector and company demand-based criteria. The policy must be supported by a reliable, consistent and transparent system. Other than that, Malaysia has also achieved major advances, and it can be seen when the Minister of Home Affairs at that time, Datuk Seri Hamzah Zainuddin, announced that the recalibration plan for illegal immigrants will be implemented. Since there is so many illegal foreign employees that must be legalized, one of the solutions that can be made is that the government should make Departments of Labour of Peninsular Malaysia a one-stop centre for legalizing them. They should also establish at least one application processing centre in each district. The procedure should be simple for employers to comprehend and implement. In conclusion, we can see that there is numerous ways in which red tape impacts individuals and organizations, especially in the administrations, education and economic sectors. Disabled persons, stateless children, and foreign workers will be adversely affected since they must undergo several complicated procedures to get their rights. Therefore, it is essential that the government take this issue seriously and provide solutions to these problems. I think that's all from us. Thank you.